Hey folks, Sam Gostner here with Vercillion Studios, and tonight I'm just doing a little bit of a more casual stream. I just put the folder to SFC converter actually for free now for anyone who wants to give that a go. It's a little bit tricky at first if you're not experienced with file name arguments and such, but the manual has a lot of information, and I hope maybe by watching this video it'll help you out a bit. So tonight I'm working on making SFC files from the VSCO to Community Edition sample set using the converter to do most of the legwork for me. So far I've done quite a few I've done about 9 total articulations. I'm doing the articulations separately, and of course later on if someone wants to key switch them up, they're more than welcome to do so, or add mod wheel, anything that they want. This is just a basic set I'm building here. So this is a essentially pre-release version 0.6. Pretty much the main addition is we've added, this is actually key stretch. We've added an option to disable and enable the stretching of keys. So what that means is if I say there's a sample on C2 and a sample on E2, if I have it off, it'll only have C2 and E2. This is handy if you have percussion and you don't want it to stretch. You know, if you have a snare drum, you have a hit on C4 and then you have a roll or a different hit on D4, you may not want it to have something on C sharp. That may not be what you desire. So that's where that's useful. And of course that'll be renamed as soon as we get a patch for this. So I'll kind of just go over this quickly as I work on the next thing. So the first thing is the notation dictionary file. I can pull those up here. So the notation dictionaries explain what note input, what argument in the file name turns into what. So I'll just open up the C3 one here. So essentially what it does is it says, okay, well I see you have A flat or AB2, A flat 2 in your file name, so that's MIDI note number 56. Oh, I see you have C3, that's MIDI note number 60, and it keeps going through this file. And this is super flexible. So here's one I made up for the organ earlier. This was used on actually 2 different patches at once. I've kind of go through and change, but over here you can see if I have this particular argument 064, that's MIDI note 36, which is in this case, if we're talking in international pitch notation, that is C2 right there. If we're talking in C3 equals 60, that would be C1. So I have that set up for a C3 equals 60, which is what most of the library is in. You'll have to double check this. If you're not sure how to do that, find some other equivalent instrument in some other library. Let's say if you're working on a flute, find a flute and play middle C, or enter note 60 in your DAW and check that out. Okay, so then the velocity dictionary simply tells it how to interpret the velocity indications. The velocity algorithm lets you specify how it maps the velocities. For now I just have it to a basic linear mapping, although of course later on I may change that, so we'll see. I have a couple presets that I've made up myself in here, and of course these come with the download. So there's just a more lower one, as I call it, nice English there, that emphasizes the lower velocity layers. So this is useful for if you like a quieter sound, more subdued sound, which is probably what I should be using, but whatever. People can change it. It's actually quite easy to change after you build them. Finally we have just the input folder and then the output file. And I'll show you kind of how all this works. So I just finished mapping the clarinet staccato here. It's the first of the clarinet in patches. So there's 64 samples. Took me less than 5 minutes. It's pretty good. So let's map the sustains. Alright, so let's see what we have here. Looks like we have three velocity layers in here. That's pretty nice. Okay, one round robin. So let's take a look. So I'm probably going to increase my velocity normalization. So what this does is it assigns a little bit of extra volume to the quieter velocities and a little bit less to the higher ones. Try to help you at least get a general balance, and you can always easily change that using the find and replace tool. Now I'll use round robin, which is when you have round robin and no velocity layers, it won't do anything in terms of multi-sample instructions. But if you have it on random robin, it'll have it randomly select. So that may add a teeny bit of CPU usage. Might as well not do that. Our velocity dictionary file is okay. Our notation dictionary file is okay. So all we need to do is change the input folder and the output file. So what I do is I do the classic Windows triple click. See, when you single click on something, it does nothing. When you double click, it selects the word. When you single click, it selects everything in the box, and then Control C to copy. This is because at the present time it doesn't save where you've been looking, so you have to re-navigate if you don't do this. Though I think we're going to try to fix that in the future. So you see here, all we have to do is click paste, and now I can manually edit this. So we were at clarinet stacks, and now we're at clarinet sus, and make sure you're doing the right capitals here. Long, capital L, L-O-N-G, sus long. Okay, so that's the folder, and now the output file. Same technique, triple click, single file, paste the full directory in there. And now I do clarinet sus. Alright. And then you click open, which may seem a bit confusing, but essentially it's designed to overwrite existing files. If you want, you can actually make a file and then select it and then click open, and that's the one it'll write into. But this way it'll auto create the file for us. So let's see. Let's make sure everything is correct. Click execute. There we go. Now let's see what we have here. So now I'm going to drag it into Aria. Luckily I figured out how to get, I think I figured out how to get Aria to play onto the desktop. There it is. There's a clarinet. So the first thing we need to do is make sure our velocities are balanced. And let's take a listen. So overall it's not bad. What you can do is just kind of click up and down the note here in Aria, and that'll, of course you can use Sforzando for this, and that'll give you an idea of the different volumes. You can actually load a MIDI clip of it playing that if you really want to be fancy and play it back and hear how the volumes are. You can even record it out. Really crazy stuff, right? And check that in a waveform editor to see if the curve is accurate, but we're not going that crazy. So what I might do is, just to show you kind of how you can do this, I'll open this up in Notepad++. There's a number of different Mac equivalents you can use to this. And let's change some volumes. So the first thing we need to check is make sure that when we change a volume, we're going to change all the volumes at the same velocity. So let's just go through here. What I can do is just go down and check for volume equals 17 for all these V1s. Okay, V2, volume equals 10, equals 10, equals 10, equals 10. See, if I don't do this and then I make a change, there'll be one sample maybe that doesn't get changed. So this is just a nice little precaution. You don't really have to do this. Okay, so we look good. So what I'm going to do now is first I'm going to bring down our top, let's bring up our lower velocity layers first. So let's do volume equals 17, and let's make that volume equals 20. Just 3 decibels. Just bring it up just a bit. You don't have to do big changes here. So the next one is volume equals 10. Let's make that volume equals 13. If you don't like 13, you can come in and change it. I'm not going to yell at you down the road if you change the samples. That should be good. So now I just screw save. And actually, here's the cool part. It will have auto updated in here, so we can actually just check it again right now. Do you hear how more even that is? Yeah, that's what we want. And it may take you a couple tries to get down to that, at first. So there, we just mapped 33 samples. We hardly had to type a line of anything. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So now we're out of the clarinet. Let's see what we have next. So I'm just going through the woodwinds here. Let's do the flute. So first up, the expressive vibrato. So what you can do when you're going to a new instrument, just click up here, select the path, Control C, copy that out. And now let's go into our mapper, to the input folder. There it is. All you gotta do. Let's just make sure that we're on the right path here. Alright, so we have a single velocity layer. We have a couple, I don't think it'll worry about those. Typically if it sees a single number, it doesn't count it as anything, so we should be fine. Originally these were round robins, when this instrument had round robins. Of course, I've pared that down. That wouldn't be fair to the people who pay money, and it wouldn't be fair to me for spending all the time and money it took to make it, to give you everything for free, so that's what it is. So let's see. Now, here we are again with the expressive vibrato. I just decreased the volume normalization just a bit. We don't need it as much. I'm pretty sure, let's see. So the bottom note of a flute is C4. It's good to try to keep some of these things in mind. So that means that this, since it has a C3, must be in C3. Okay. So velocity dictionary, good. Velocity algorithm, we don't even need to worry about that. Okay, we need to change the output file. So triple click, select file, paste. Now we go in here, and this is flute X vibe. And this is you can write whatever you want in here. Of course, the input folder is where you need to be careful. So now all we have to do is press execute. There we go. Now let's check it out. Get our handy aria open here. Drag our flute in. Sounds pretty good to me. So we can empty that. And let's do the next patch. What do we have here? Let's do the staccato. So normally if you were an SFC creator, you'd probably look, oh god, 48 samples and I have to set up round robins. Nope. All we gotta do is go to our input folder, set it up. Now let's see, how many layers do we have here? We have 3 layers, that's pretty good, and 2 round robins. That's pretty rare for a free flute. Let's bring this up to 20 so we'll get a nice balance. C3, yep. Always double check. Sometimes, you're going along and you think you have everything going well, and then you realize you just overwrote the same file 4 times. Flute stack. Okay. Not a very, and of course I'm going to switch to random robin here. Random robin, at least in my opinion, typically sounds better when you have a lower number of round robin samples. Let's execute. Boom, 48 samples. By the way, this video is not sped up at all. I'm not, you know, this is exactly how long it takes to make these with this tool, which is just amazing. Load it up. Alright, let's check. Right on the money. It's always good to take a couple samples of that up and down the instrument. So you can see that one, the second velocity was fairly loud, so it actually kind of held on. But that's a common characteristic of instruments like flutes, brass instruments, most woodwinds. In the upper register and lower register, they tend to have a much smaller dynamic range. You can look up this information in any orchestration book. So we look pretty good there, but one thing we might notice is that it doesn't go as low as we might want. And that's either because of the omission of samples or any number of reasons. So what we can do is we can go in and edit that. So let's take a look at our flute here. Open it up. Of course I can close these old ones. So here's our flute staccato. Let's take a look. So the lowest sample we go down to is A3. So what we have to do is find A3, oh, there it is, and stretch it down a bit. So we don't want to stretch it down typically more than a minor third from where it is. So a minor third is 3 half steps. Pretty easy to remember. So let's do 66. See where that brings us. See, now you have to update every instance of A3. So you just have to kind of look. And you can use a find if you want. Find A3, find next, and here I do 66, find next, 66. So always try to think whenever you can. Try to use your tools as much as possible to save time. And there we go. We did that change. I would have had to go scrolling through that document for a whole long time to do that. And now it's already updated. And you'll see I've stretched it down to the F sharp, which is better. Of course, if you wanted, I might be able to get it all the way down to the E. But some other user can do that in the future if they want. Let's see. Let's go on to the next here. So let's do the sus non-vibrato. 19 samples. Of course, we can do this approach where we just copy the name, or we can copy this and change it. Whatever works. We've input that. So here we have 2 dynamic layers and quite a difference. So I might leave it up there at 16 or so. And of course you may need to change these later on, so there's no problem. Of course we have to make sure we change our name. We don't want bad things to happen. Rewriting all of your instruments, that's not fun. No one deserves to have that happen to them. That sucks. Alright. Here we are. Look at that. Perfectly mapped range. Wonderful. Here, let me mute my mic so you can really hear that. So you can hear it's right even there. It's very even. So that's good. That's a nice mapping. Okay, now for the next. Almost done with the flute here. Maybe I'll finish, maybe I'll go crazy and finish all these tonight. Boy, I think that'd be a new record there. Sample a 2000 sample instrument library in a single sitting. That'd be pretty good. I wonder if they'd put me in the record books. Probably not. It's kind of the one sad thing about sampling. There's a lot of people out there who do this. You know, this is their lives, and man, they do a great job. Oh yeah, you see, one thing I forgot to do back there was I forgot to change back to the round robin setting. So we may want to go and remove that information from here if it's in there. Oh, I guess it didn't do it. Okay, that must have been an issue with an earlier build. So we're all set there. Okay. So typically it's pretty smart. It'll tell if you don't have any round robins and then act accordingly. We did make it to remove as much of the work as possible, you know, without getting to the point of fine points. So we just have to change our name here. And this is sus5. Execute. Try it out. And of course, if you want to be a power user, you can go in here and use opcodes and add a filter that removes some of the highs as you get quieter. These are all options you can always do later to improve the performance of these instruments and these samples. You know, if you end up using this instrument set as a basis, it's really, really easy to come in here and add opcodes in the text file. You know, you can look, there's a list in the description below I'll put in this video, and also in the manual. There's several lists of places you can go and just look up opcodes. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of practical tutorials on what exactly all of them do, but you know, it doesn't take much experimenting. You can even just do a simple Google search, find information. We're almost through the flute here. Oh, we are through the flute, my bad. So now we just have the oboe, and you've been with me since the bassoon, I believe. So now we have the oboe staccatos. Now this is a stack with 2 Cs. One of the things is when you build a library over 2 years, the naming conventions can kind of drift. So a lot of the earlier samples actually use actual note velocity names, or the actual Italian notation of, you know, mezzo forte, piano, fortissimo. And actually the notation dictionary default in here is already programmed to handle those, which is nice. It can actually also handle loud, medium, and soft, which I think is kind of funny but super handy. So let's see. So here we have 3 velocity layers. Let's try 20. So this kind of, you know, one thing you can do is, if you notice it doesn't work, you can actually just rebuild the instrument. But I typically just go in and tweak it. You know, I'm pretty... Oh, forgot to change that. I'm pretty lazy. Although I guess that's the non-lazy approach. I'll just do 1C. Oboe staccato. Let's use random robins since there are round robins, random robins, multi-samples. I don't think there's a naming convention for those. Yep. There we go, 51 samples. I feel like that's like your score. You mapped 51 samples. So one thing you may notice with the staccato is you may actually want to increase the length of them. So what we can do is hop over into our text editor, and here's the release length. So I might do 2 or 3 here. Some people may want them shorter. This is a super easy thing to change. It's right at the top in the global area. No problem. And now when I go in, it'll play the full length. So let's take a listen here at our velocities. So there's an example of something we don't want, and that's that we made a velocity too loud. But let's check our really quiet velocity here. So that transition is okay, just the loudest sample is, for some reason, not loud enough, which is somewhat rare, but does happen. So let's go take a look at what our loudest sample is. So that should be V3 here. Let me just double check that we got 17, 10, and 3 all the way through. Good. Okay, so now all I need to do is do a find and replace. So wherever I see volume 3, remember this is how much volume is added. Wherever I see volume 3, let's make it 7. Increase it by 4. Replace all. 16 changes. Okay, great. Now let's give it a listen. Still a little bit off. Let's go back into that. Okay, so we have a volume 5 here. Let's make that 7. One thing to keep our eye on. You may end up with a case where there's just one that is missing a velocity layer, and then that one gets 5 or whatever. So this is pretty easy with this sort of size, actually. So we'll do volume equals 7, make that volume equals 9. The oboe has a rather limited dynamic range in real life, so you know, 3 dynamic layers wasn't really necessary, I guess. Much better. Wonderful. Okay. So that one's done. Empty. Now we have our sustain. I like just being able to see the information before I input it, so I kind of understand what we're looking for, what we're going to be dealing with. So you can see 2 velocity layers. Okay. Let's do 16. Try it out. Cool. Sounds good. Close it out. Now just onto the vibrato, and then we'll be done with the woodwinds. You can see how insanely simple this actually is. You know, once you're dealing with a consistent platform, you know, the organ was pretty hellish, relatively speaking, hellish for all of 20 minutes, because I had to build a custom notation dictionary file. But after that, it was pretty straightforward. All of these follow the simple naming convention. So when you have a library that's really consistent like this, it gets really nice and easy. And you can just chug along. I really wish I made expressive vibrato for the oboes. It's a shame. The oboes were pretty much the first thing I did intentionally for the library. Everything else kind of just happened. Sounds a little loud. I think it's fine. You know, if someone wants to come in later, tighten that up. Who am I to stop them? They're free. Free instruments, free samples. People can do whatever they want with them. And that's the woodwinds. So I guess I'm going to stop this video now that we've done that. And I'll probably keep making these for a while. And I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you get a chance to check out these instruments. Maybe you can make them better, or build your own. You know, this is one of the really rare chances where there's a nice, complete set of instruments, and everything's pretty much in order, except for some of the names can be a little confusing, but overall it's something that's pretty easy to build and work with, and I hope you'll enjoy it a lot. I certainly loved working on this project. It was, you know, it is something very near and dear to me, and something I'll remember making for the rest of my life. And well, I think I need to stop now. It's almost 1 in the morning. So have a great day, and thanks for watching.